Good evening, everybody. How are you all doing? It's a pleasure to be here at JNS. Thank you for hosting this and privileged to be here. I'm familiar with this room because I've been sitting there a couple of years as a parent. My girls are in the school here, so it's wonderful to be back here. Talking about school, I loved being a student at school. Schooling years were probably the best years, probably of all our lives, right? The friendships that we made, the masti that we did. I love school because, especially the time before and after class hours, I was kind of disconnected in the class. I couldn't really get a grip on the sciences, or the maths, or the social studies, or the literature, almost all subjects. My academic aspirations were not to finish last in class. That's all I went for. Those were my goals. And it was tough competition between me and my friend. मेरे को तेरे से 1 mark ज़्यादा मिला. Right? So as long as I cleared, I was very happy. But back then, if you were not academically inclined, you fast ran out of career options. Obviously, medicine, engineering, and all were totally far-fetched. So I didn't know what to do. And I was reaching that point in life where I had to find a source to make a livelihood. So a friend of mine was going to catering college. I said, "Chal, main bhi chalu. I'm going to come with you. I'm going to extend my student life." So I get into catering college. He didn't get in. So I find myself in hotel management. And I go through the first year. In the first year, we have subjects like food and beverage service. We have basic training, kitchen skills development. We have housekeeping. And I find that I'm starting to enjoy this process of learning. That is more hands-on, that is more interactive. It's a bit of social element involved. We are talking to people while you're working. And I suddenly found myself enjoying the learning process, which I kind of was disconnected in school with. And during this first year of hotel management, every time I walked by the pastry shop, I was very intrigued with the aromas, the visuals. And we were sent on industrial training, industrial exposure, for you to go and see what the industry is all about, get a feel of what your future would be, to get a feel of what department you might be interested in. So I remember clearly it was this month, December to Jan, the training was for a month. I got into the hotel and I requested the chef, can I go into food production, which is the kitchen area. And because it's season time now, Christmas is just around the corner, so he puts me into the pastry shop. And I clearly remember pushing open the doors, this nice air conditioning breeze coming in, people glazing eclairs, the aromas of baked products. This is my life. This is where I belong. So I get it. I didn't know much about baking then because I was still in the first year. So I get in there, and because it's season, of course, the working hours are long, but it was tired. I never felt I was tired. And then I was very intrigued with what was going on. Eclairs being baked. When you mix butter, sugar, egg, and flour, you end up with a cookie. The same ingredients could result in a cake. I'm like, what is going on? And when it's so technical and it's so scientific. Science, remember, I was not a big fan of when I was in school. But suddenly, I started getting intrigued by the science of baking and pastry. So I find myself on the streets of Churchgate Station, at these book vendors outside. Sorry guys, there was no Instagram then. Students, 3-year generation, right? So there was no Instagram, and so we had to go out to Churchgate. I used to start getting books on baking and pastry and getting involved on reading and researching and asking everybody I knew in the industry questions on why is this happening, or what is the reaction when you mix these ingredients, what's happening in the oven, what is the effect of heat on protein, on starches, on gelatinization. Science again was not my favorite subject, but suddenly things had changed. I started enjoying the science of baking pastry. I started enjoying the learning process. It was not classroom oriented. Okay, how many of you guys kind of find yourself not too inclined in the classroom? The teachers are around here, they're watching you. I'm kidding. But okay, good. So don't stress out, okay? So I enjoyed this learning process and the intricacies of baking and pastry and chocolate. So when I graduated, obviously I went into the baking industry, but I felt this quest to learn more. What I knew was not enough. So I decided I'm going to go abroad. So I went abroad. I studied baking and pastry further for 2 years. Still not too happy, but enough to get a job. I wanted to learn more. Once I went abroad to learn, I realized the depth of knowledge and information, and probably retains or applies to any field. It was seamless. It had no order. It was so wide. So I continued the learning, continued the studying on my own. And that's when you realize that one lifetime is just not enough for me to know everything about baking and pastry. If I were to live for 200 years, I would be doing the same thing that I do. Continue to study, continue to research, continue to develop. So I felt that this is just an endless process of learning. Learning that I detested when I was in school. So I come out, I continue the learning, I continue working, and I felt that I need to learn more, and I felt the best way to learn was to be competitive. So I started the competitions. You know, you have regionals and you have state level competitions back in the US, and then you have the national level competitions. So I thought, after a few years of competing locally, I thought, let me try the US nationals. So I enrolled for it. You do the nationals so that you get into the US team to represent United States at the International Pastry World Cup. Just like we have the Cricket World Cup, guys, we have a Pastry World Cup. So I enrolled myself to compete at the national level in the United States. And guys, this is a very serious competition. Probably the toughest one back then. A one-person job, you got to go in and work for 9 hours, and you put out a bunch of products, and everything is timed. Every 3-4 hours they'll ask you, give me your cake, give me your petit gâteau, give me your ice cream dessert, give me your showpiece, and then finally you got to put out a whole display, and you're alone, you're working alone. Anyway, it's a tough competition, and you practice. I practiced for a whole year, no days off, you work hard, but I mean, it may sound like a lot, but it didn't feel like anything because I was so vested, so involved, so committed to the process, it didn't feel like work. So I get into this event, I register for it, I go for the competition. I'm probably 1/3 into the event, the competition, and you are supposed to make this sculpture made out of chocolate and sugar. And I make this, and while I'm doing something else, for some strange reason, this structure that's probably 30–40% ready comes down crashing. It just shatters. And it's all over the table. It's on the floor. 1 year of hard work. Stay with this moment, guys. You work 1 year, you put away everything in your life, not taking a day off. You practice for this, day in and out, and this thing is on the floor, shattered in front of you. What is going through your mind? It's like a brain freeze. My heart fell. It was like I was sinking. My brain was frozen. I couldn't think. I couldn't even see probably. There's sweat dripping down my back. And I'm thinking, why the hell do I have to do this? I had a good job, life was going well. Why do I need to put myself in this situation where I'm experiencing this right now? And what do I need to do? Of course, there are international judges, they're walking all around. You get marks for cleanliness and how organized you work. So, do I quit here now and say, okay, I just had a bad day? I said, you know what, I'm in the process, I'm probably 30–40% done. Let me just finish the best I can. So I asked the assistant, can I get a broom? I remember that moment, guys. I get a broom and a pan, and I'm sweeping the shadows that's all around my table and on the floor. I clean the floor, clean my table, put all the shards away, and I just put my head down and just continue working. Luckily, during practice sessions, you factor for some uncertainties like this, but it never ever happened during the practice session. But it happened on the final day. So anyway, I had some spare time. I did the best I could. My food went out on time. luckily your display piece had to go out at the very end for your final display. I managed to put it together. I put my display out, and it all went well. Of course, I had a few prayers in between. See me through this, and I'll be the best guy ever. I won't do anything wrong, and it worked. So I put out the display, and I did really well. And I represented the United States as team captain for the United States for the 2003 World Cup. Was how I. Now, thank you. But this is not about that. What I want you folks, especially the students here, to take away from this is that moment where everything came down crashing. If there's one thing that you should remember is do not be afraid of failure. Do not be afraid to fail. Because if you don't put yourself through that, there will be no growth, there will be no learning, right? So taking these learnings into the next event was the World Cup. So you're practicing now for the World Cup, and it's a 3-member team. You represent the United States for the pastry World Cup. And there are 24 countries competing, so it's more intense. And now you realize, so the learning was not just about the science of baking in pastry or the skills development. The learning was also about yourself, about knowing yourself, of how much you can push yourself, how will you feel when things don't go your way, what do you need to do in adversity. And so for me, that phase was 2-3 years is when I learned about myself, about my fears, about my limitations, about my ability to work with people. And you have to push every aspect of this. And your life will be challenging. It's not going to be easy, but do not shy away. Do not be down. Even the best have failed. So remember the example of this broom, okay? Yeah. You've got to put your things together and start all over again. So anyway, we did that. We went for the competitions. We did well there too. Now, the learning from all this is that 35 years ago when I started, baking and pastry was not considered a career choice. Okay? People in my family were very concerned. Was chef बन के होटल में खाना बनाएगा, कोई शादी नहीं करेगा. Right? That was the first thing. Nobody's going to get married to you. But luckily, all that happened. I got to be a chef. I got married to a most incredible lady. She's right here. So today now, in the few months or years, you folks will be faced with making a career decision. And sitting where you are, or even where your parents are, it's going to be very hard to tell what unfolds 20, 30 years from now. I want to just make a request that if you have an inclination towards any subject or anything, you must pursue that fearlessly. You're too young to be confined right now. Just explore. Please be free. Be fearless, and even the smallest interest you have in something, commit yourself, go in there and learn. However off it may sound to you today, if you're committed to the process, if you're ready to submit yourself and embrace what that particular field has to offer, you will succeed, my guarantee. Okay? So don't undermine yourself and don't undermine your abilities. The last thing here is, during the course, the most important thing that I learned is to be humble and to be grateful. Because where the industry was 35 years ago and where we are today, and what the next generation of pastry chefs or chefs in this country will bring, is going to be amazing. And it is not academically inclined. Academics and learning could go hand in hand, or you could learn even if you're not academically inclined, and that was me back then when I started.